Welcome back, everybody. It's going to be a great conversation today with Daniel Bess, who's an actor and not just that, also a philosopher, a visionary. He's got a lot to say about life, the universe, and everything else, and intelligence, which is sort of where this conversation is going to lead. So welcome, Daniel. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, we want to get into you just sort of saying who you are and telling us a little bit about your story, your childhood, and how you got to this space and point in time where we are today.
Amazing. So first and foremost, born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii.
Right.
My mom was a professor of African American literature. There weren't a lot of Black people in Hawaii, so it became ethnic literature, a lot of Asian American literature, Native American literature. My dad worked in publishing in New York, but they met. That's the only place she got a tenured offer. So she moved to, and I was born and raised in Hawaii. I grew up in this childhood that I wish I could offer my son. I grew up at the last houses on the block in a jungle. So we were in a suburb, but basically my background was waterfalls in Palolo Valley. I'd say I was very influenced by being like a minority. I was like maybe 3 or 4 white kids per 30 class.
Yeah.
We lived in Samoa for a few months, so I was the only white kid in there. In every summer, strangely enough, we ran a bed and breakfast on a Native American reservation in northern Wisconsin. And like in my summer job in college was like blackjack dealing on the casino on the reservation. So like, and then growing up, my mom I'd like, what's a good book? And so all I was reading was like James Baldwin and Maya Angelou. And so I'm like reading all this African-American literature, but I'm like this little white kid, very privileged. We spent a year living in Italy when my mom had her sabbatical. So I got to live at a school with like 9 kids in a class in the middle of Tuscany. I was so privileged on so many levels. And my sister's a lifelong school teacher. She's now running a bookshop and writing children's books. She just ended after 18 years. My brother's a teacher for special education. My dad's created a publishing company, Bess Press, and they provide educational materials throughout Polynesia. So in different languages, in Guam, Samoa, all these places. So like my whole life is about this kind of stuff. My personal story is very quickly knew I wanted to be an actor at like 14. Put everything in there. I went to performing arts high school, pushed hard to go to like summer camps for that, and then went to a conservatory, got out, did a bunch of theater, did a bunch of TV shows. And as that went on, and the thing I was so passionate about, this like art became a business, I wasn't a businessman. I hadn't built that part of myself up, and I didn't know how to hold both. And my life, the way I was living my life wasn't aligning with who I was internally. And so like 20 years ago, because it's very much part of my story and why I do what I do now, I got sober and I realized I had that problem. And I found a bunch of men who had figured out that problem and were living life on this way that had this ritual and this way of being emotionally that I'd been aspiring to my whole life, because there was no ritual for men growing up. Like there was no like guidance on that. I had a great father, but like there was no communal and
structuring.
Yeah, and in the course of getting sober, I started putting all my real passion towards helping other men. And all of a sudden I found I had an incredible talent for like helping other men crack that code. And as that went on and my career started diving, as my emotional, internal, personal life started getting better and better. And then I finally was the volume was so loud. I was like, okay. And I went back to school and became a psychotherapist. In the course of that, I got heavy into Buddhism, meditating. I go on silent retreats every year. And then I started 14 years ago these recovery groups for men. They're based in meditation to get sober, but largely based in meditation. Now they meet every day of the year in Los Feliz at 8:30 in the morning, and guys meditating and trying to help each other. And the cornerstone of my work now is men, teen boys to elders, developmental trauma, sex abuse, neglect, complex PTSD, but also like compulsive behaviors and major life transitions, grief, divorce, that kind of stuff. So.
Wow. So that's a rich, intercultural, incredibly varied story that you've just told us. And it's opening up a whole universe of themes. But something that stood out straight away in my mind's eye hearing you was you said you lived on the edge of a jungle.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, what did that bring you? What is living in the jungle for you?
A lot. And it's something that like breaks my heart that I can't give my son. Like it was this weird street that went way down. So we'd fly our skateboards down on a dead end street that all these people in the 70s built these houses on the edge of the jungle. And there's a bunch of other kids to play with. You just go outside, come home for dinner. They all knew each other, maybe 10 houses. And then 100 yards down was the stream to a waterfall, to a pool to swim in, to a mountain, to dozens of waterfalls. And so we'd climb mountains. We'd do some dangerous stuff, but we were just like imaginative play. Go out and have fun. You kind of have to what's the right word? You have to like figure it out together socially. Parents aren't around, you know. And then in Wisconsin, we had a house, and it's a Chippewa reservation, and so they leased the land to like mostly white people on the 1/3 of the lake, but 2/3 of the lake there was nothing, just woods and islands. And once we knew how to swim, you can row out to the islands, and you're just gone all day. And I can go to these places with my son, but I can't offer him that freedom. And it's hard to put into words for people who didn't get it. It's just like.
As a parent, I sometimes feel that it's you can't give your children what you had because it's gone. You can't give yourself what you had because it's gone, and we have to sort of deal with that. You know, maybe we're trying to recreate our own childhood for our children, but the world's changed, and invariably we're in a different situation. But I sometimes feel that mourning as well. I mean, I grew up in Africa, and my children were raised in Europe. And when I saw my children reacting to bugs, as they were calling them, I sort of felt like you guys haven't grown up barefoot, you know, outside.
You had no idea.
But then, you know, that's the way the world is. It's this ever evolving, changing place, I guess. But yeah, no, an idyllic childhood, and that must have forged some of your values. And
it did, and I want to say, you know, there were other things that weren't, you know, when adults are not always present, other things do happen, you know, like there's a couple rough things that happened that also dictated why I do what I do now. But in all, I'm incredibly grateful for the opportunities I had. I was incredibly privileged. Like I was given the opportunity to live in beautiful nature with really parents who really cared about ideas and thought, and then given the opportunity, when I showed my passion, they funded it. And they allowed me. I wanted to go to the best theater arts program in the summer at like 10th grade. We found it. I got in. They supported that. And that's like, you know, it's so privileged.
Well, that's very powerful. There is an awful lot of emphasis in our society. First of all, there are a lot of parents who I think understand the critical importance of that your parents showed. But I often thought raising our kids, we would take them to different countries in Africa. We would take them we went on sabbatical in different countries. And we didn't have a lot of money because you don't have a lot of money in academia. But our call was, we're not going to give our children things. We're going to give them experiences.
Amazing.
And from there, they identify, they find, they sort out the passions that they're going to take. So I'm still blown away by the potpourri of living at the edge of the jungle, then dealing cards on a Chippewa reservation, living in Italy, some of the other things that you've done kind of.
It Forbes a lot because like my dad's best friend, he owned this PI company, insurance, private investigators for insurance. When somebody says they broke their back.
Right.
And so my summer job was like going in 22 states by myself at 19.
Investigating.
Filming and driving around Texas and West Virginia and New York City, and like it's wild. So I'd so lucky.
Did you ever find you ever confront any fraudsters? We don't need to spend time on this. But I just think insurance fraud is a big deal.
I can summarize it very quickly. Not a huge fan of insurance companies, and the people that hired us, the people were already under suspicion. I didn't have a single legitimate claim. I had people who they were supposed to be paralyzed. And I remember one woman, and she lived across a church, unfortunately for her, because I could park right in the church parking lot. The garage door opened. She and her husband lift a John Deere tractor into the grass.
You're an actor, and you said that at about 14, you knew this was your calling. How did that happen? Where did that spark come from? Was there some kind of aha moment where you said, like, this is what I want to do? Or how did that dawn on you?
My grandmother thought she was a psychologist for deaf children. She thought I was deaf. Because my dad was an amateur carpenter like myself, and he made like 400 blocks with different angles and stuff just to play with. And my grandmother said I had this like world at 3, 4 years old, just 2, 3, 4, just created. And I had names for everything, even though they were the same block. And she would talk to me and I wouldn't respond because I was just so lost in this worlds I was creating with my mind. And that she recommended I get tested for deafness. Yeah. And that kept going, I guess I would say. I was terribly shy, could barely speak. I have friends from high school who, my friend Kim, who actually lives near here in Burbank, she was like, Danny, I would say hi, you would turn beet red and walk away. Like I was that profoundly shy. But on stage, in another psyche, another world, I could do anything. So it gave me this like capacity, like this avatar in which to express things that I deeply felt but couldn't, because I described myself emotionally as a high schooler as like a pistachio nut without an opening. But that art gave me the ability to express the deepest feelings that I just didn't have access to, which is why so much now of my work is like being good at that and helping others, because I was so bad at it.
Do you think a lot of actors are actually introverts and that they go through this sort of avatar experience? You're saying it's sort of second life on stage where a whole new them comes out? Or?
My favorite ones, Daniel Day-Lewis, De Niro, they get better at it as they get older. They can't stand talk shows. They're hypersensitive.
It seems that there's a whole category of actors who have the reputation for being nothing different on the set than they are in real life. And then the sort of phenomena you're describing is, well, you did have access to those inner resources, but you only had access when you were in that environment.
Right. And publicly and socially, it's very, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. It was probably the hardest time of my life was 7th grade to 12th grade. When puberty hit, and I had no tools but on stage, the world was my oyster. I was king. I knew I could do these amazing, And so it gave me access to actually let these things out, to titrate these deeply felt emotions in a way that I just didn't have access to.
Reminds me of Hamlet. There's the play within the play in Hamlet.
Yeah.
Where what Hamlet is doing by getting the play is to play the murder of his father
because he can't do it himself. He's stuck.
For Claudius, he's bringing an inner truth that he can't express himself out. I mean, for political reasons as well as maybe psychological reasons through the play. So it's that interesting sort of awakening that art gives you. And I wanted to ask you,
can I just throw in? I just want to throw in one quote because it goes to the heart of like intelligence and everything I believe in, and it's my favorite quote of all time because you just mentioned Hamlet. When Polonius is giving his speech to his son of like how to live a life because he's going off to seek his fortune in France, and he's like, "This above all, let's see if I get it right. This above all else, to thine own self be true. As the night follows the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." That like. To be authentic to who you are is maybe one of the highest forms of intelligence, comfortable in your own skin, which I was not at that age,
That's
and
powerful.
have gotten to now.
How the heck? I know you got a question, but let me just ask how the heck did Shakespeare? See, that's a quotation. It's a favorite quotation of your life. How would someone like Shakespeare come up with something like this? And we're at a time now when the movie Hamnet is out, which is a story of his wife in their early life together, when no one knew that he was building a reservoir of observation and insight that would have these telling statements that he would convert into the stage. So I'm just amazed at how much insight or intelligence, or what would it take for a writer to even say something like that and build it into such a compelling character. But please go ahead. I don't know if there's an answer.
Well, I would say they consider Hamlet, because you brought it up, is like the first modern play, because he keeps coming out and he's like debating this out loud with the audience of this rich inner life. And much like I think Don Quixote is considered the first modern novel. And it's just like for me, your question is like, how? I think he's tapped into a higher intelligence. There's a greater thing that he just had access to. And also lived in a world where there was no dictionary, there were no rules. He got to create words. He created addiction, assassination. Like Macbeth didn't know what to say. What is the word when you murder a king? And in that moment, he goes, in his monologue, he's like, assassination. That's the first time it's ever mentioned. And then, you just get to create on the fly. So it was also a beautiful time, I think, for English language.
Bubonic plague, but...
Well, I mean, anyway, Shakespeare is a deep and endless discussion. Now, you've done a lot of different roles.
Yeah.
Which are you the most proud of, and why?
It's actually a couple stage roles that I always wanted to do. And the most was Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, because I read that when I was young. I then became an alcoholic. I then got sober. And I still consider that I have alcoholism, like diabetes, but I just keep it in remission. And that whole book is written by a drunk, Tennessee Williams.
Right.
And this guy, this archetype of American greatness,
ruffian,
the star quarterback, is drinking himself to death. And he's a millionaire son. Big Daddy owns this plantation. And everybody's like, why? What's wrong? And I got to do that with my son's mother, Linda Parks. She's a very successful actress. She got to play Maggie. I got to play Brick. One of my childhood heroes when I was really unhappy, but loved acting. And I would watch this show called Whose Line Is It Anyway? I don't know if you ever saw that. And there's this big guy.
Drew Carey?
The original one, but Michael McShane, he was in Friar Tuck in The Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner. He was one of my heroes when I was a kid. He played Big Daddy, and one of my favorite directors. And it's the time I got closest to what I felt this part should be. And I finally embodied it. Because it's one of the great roles. It's my favorite play ever written, and I think I got there at some nights. Some nights I got there.
How did you know you'd got there?
I would walk. It's complicated because when you don't know. It's like the great art, the great athlete, the great artist. It's after the fact. It's like you're so fully enraptured in the present moment that afterwards you're like, what just happened? But you felt it.
I mean, there's this whole concept of flow in educational psychology.
It came out of educational psychology or out of psychology, but it's been applied. Japanese motorcycle gangs, they get into the flow. I often show videos of Michael Jordan in Game 2 of the Portland Trailblazers series when he hit 5 3-point shots in the first half, and there's a famous shrug. But if you look at the videos where he not only had everything slow down, but even the setting itself, he would walk up and just drop the ball in, and everything slowed down. He would say later, I didn't know what was going on. All I knew is that no one could stop me. I knew it had to end sometime, but and Magic Johnson is broadcasting, and he's going, this guy is unbelievable. Michael Jordan looks at him from the sides, and this is probably the most famous gesture from the court to the sidelines, he just shrugged. If you look up the shrug in YouTube,
it's a very famous.
He is completely in the flow, and then he stepped out of it. This sort of metacognitive. Well, now,
but it ties us back to Shakespeare. I think he's touched with the greater consciousness,
some
greater
consciousness.
intelligence.
Exactly.
And if we work hard enough and we're diligent and we're lucky, we get a moment in that ecstatic oneness.
It's magic. Which
is why I meditate so much, because I find it happens more when I do.
Yeah, so just tell us a little bit about your passion. What is your mission right now? Because you've got this very strong vision of what you're trying to bring to people around you.
Yeah. So what I was trying to do, I think, was really trying to use in my younger self. I think I was using acting to try to heal myself. It was a form of self-therapy. And as I faced my life problems and got better and better and found through service, I got better. As I worked on myself and helped others, all of a sudden life got better and better and better. And then I wanted to make that my life. Like, I don't see it's an art, because I learn all these different forms of training, and but all I've done in my psychology work and in my inner work to then try to help others is understand what is going on. What is this subconscious? What is this mind? What are these emotions? What is happening? And why am I suffering? Why are other people suffering? And how to get out of it? And so it's much like acting. It's like understanding my mind, understanding my emotions, understanding my body, and how they're all connected. And in doing so, it's just been, I'm kind of at a loss for words. It's like the most exciting and joyful experience of my life to like help other people start to discover that. I was with a client, and we just kept running into this block, and I was like, it sounds like your mind's coming in here trying to figure this out for us. And he had this revelation over the course of a couple of sessions of realizing his mind is not who he is. His greatest helper, it's his greatest helper, but it's not him. The very fact that you can be aware of your mind means it's not you. It's a part of you. But I, as this male in America, was raised to believe this is who I am, and just that liberation changes everything for me. And I'm going way off on a tangent, but it's just like
no, it's not a tangent.
This is the main event.
Okay, yeah, because we're talking about what should we be doing in schools? What should we be nurturing? And it seems to me you're talking about a kind of spiritual self-awareness, or
that's a dangerous word. So, like, for me, yes. For others, I would say consciousness, or whatever they want to call that word. But like, even if I, like with my son, I take him to Buddhism for Kids, and I try to like have him see if he can be aware of thought. Can he feel his emotion, his body? Where is it? The moment you start paying attention to these things, they no longer are like running my life. I have space.
So when I listen to Daniel, I'm thinking somehow along the line, he found a way to go up the steps to the operating room theater where he could look down. What you gave yourself, or what you found, was a way to observe these different domains of self and trying to connect them. I don't know if that's the best way to put it, but there was an awareness of your different dimensions and disconnects, and I think you're asking, how do we help kids find that?
Yeah.
How do we make this unconscious conscious?
Maybe we can take a step back. What do you think some of the main sort of issues or blockages facing a lot of young people might be today?
Biggest one with the teens I'm working with. I work with a lot of teen boys. These effing screens, man. It's like it's all of us. These notifications, the access to, they're just it's not good. It's just not good. And it's a reality that we all have to contend with. So it's just like, that's the biggest one, because men have 50% less friends than we had 20 years ago. Teen boys and men. We're men, unfortunately, we treat our loneliness with isolation.
Right.
Because we're taught that Clint Eastwood, or when I grew up, who was it? John McClane, Bruce Willis, and it's just like these archetypes of effing violence. Like, it's weird that is like who was my heroes, that from
or Kiefer Sutherland.
Or Kiefer Sutherland, like put a gun in their face and make them tell the truth. It's just like, so, I don't know how I got off there.
You're talking about being lonely and almost venerated solitude as an archetype.
They've done all the studies from what I know is like boys and girls, 0 to 5, and they found that boys are a little more emotional than girls. But what are we taught by age 5 or 6? I was taught you don't cry in front of anybody,
Yeah, they may still be more emotional, but as you said, they don't express it.
So how does it come out? Bop.
And how are the screens
of some form?
How do the screens fit into this?
Self-soothing. It's maladaptive self-soothing, the same as alcohol. And the worst is, and I don't want to scare everybody, but like, how do you get more and more engagement for anything? You got to go to more and more extremes.
Right.
And what is available now to children and kids, unless you are on top of your devices, like the most worst parts of pornography. It's just like that's a piece that like I deal a lot with these boys, and I try to teach these teen boys, like if you are learning about sex through watching this really aggressive porn, it's like trying to learn how to drive by watching Fast and the Furious.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, I know that's a big social problem.
I don't want to get in that dark stuff, but it's like part of all this stuff. They've done all the studies. It's not good. And so screens are a big thing, getting my kid in his body. I learned through being in my body when teachers had me physically do something or engage with them, not just be told something, memorize it, and then put it on paper. That was a very painful way of learning for me.
You go back into the jungle and down the waterfall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we come back to that. I mean, so it's fewer screens, more authentic, engaged, the real life, socially interactive experiences.
Getting kids in their body, like my son is like, he doesn't want to do the thing. We do the thing. He feels great because it's a healthy thing. Like we go on the hike or the bike ride or whatever. There's resistance to it, but there are things that he has videos. He watches his Ninjago. We have a set time, but I notice if we go a little too long, he's grumpy, and so every time we turn it off, I say, "Hey, buddy, you notice that you're always sad." You're always grumpy. You're irritated after this. Do you know? I don't think it's good for you. And so I'm bringing awareness. Like, Daddy watches videos too. So like, I'm not going to be a hypocrite, but like, I'm trying to bring awareness to this.
It's almost connecting with this idea of you being outside of your mind or observing your mind as part of your being, because the mind is absorbing these things. But if you're not just your mind and you're aware of what's happening to your mind, your consciousness or your spirit or whatever it is that's sort of outside of the mind will control it. Which goes back to a lot of ancient philosophies around mind control and the importance of discipline and training your mind.
Yeah, and that's where I feel like in the Buddhist position is incredible, greatest servant, terrible master. Because the mind is fear-based. It's always worrying. It's always trying to solve problems, which is great. Thank you, mind. Thank you. But it is not, if I can be aware of it, then it should not be in charge. My awareness should be, whatever you want to call it, consciousness, spirit, I don't know. But my awareness should be running the show, not my fear-based mind.
Well, your comments about screen and screen taking over, it brings to mind, and you mentioned sliding into alcoholism as sort of a self-soothing, self-medicating. We now have with screens a force that we simply never had before to the same degree, and we never understood. I liken this to not realizing the effects, for example, of nicotine.
Right.
So this has become sort of this ubiquitous health hazard that's completely invaded society that we simply didn't and don't understand fully.
And I mean, I want to make it clear. If I was raised in their generation, I would be the exact same way.
Yeah, of course.
And if any generation would be the same, there'd be different heroes and villains, but it would be the same thing. So this is like, I'm working through it too. How do I turn these notifications off? How do I get away from how do I have a healthy relationship with this technology we don't even understand yet? And AI is coming.
Understand.
Like, good Lord, we are, what does the Chinese say? The curse, may you be born in interesting times. Like
We're cursed.
And I think digital migrants are sometimes struggling with it even more than digital natives, because we've lived through this, astonishing shift. So managing it, I think a lot of adults are struggling to manage it, and they may be projecting that anxiety onto their children's use, which is not to say that children on devices is okay. It isn't, and we need to look after.
It's inevitable. Like, he's going to have to navigate this, but he's, we'll see how it plays out. I'm apologizing to my son in advance. He's probably going to hate me. I don't know that he's going to get a smartphone. Period. Till he's away. Like, that's a whole other debate. But we're all trying to figure this stuff out. But for me, I want to be really aware of. So far, my understanding of looking at their ethical behavior, these social media companies are not behaving ethically from my position, and I don't want my children using their platforms if they are not coming from an ethical place. Yeah. Like, I don't want them watching unethical content, like children's shows that are giving bad messages, and similarly. So
it's not just the kids using the platforms. What's happening is that the platforms are using the kids.
Yeah, we are the product.
Right.
So we're talking about, self-awareness, awareness of the world, the mind, consciousness. Out of all of that, how would you define intelligence?
For me, the highest form of intelligence is the ability to live one's own life with awareness and integrity, be at ease in one's own skin, aligned with one's values, flexible in the face of life, generous in impact, and quietly content in having lived a way that helped rather than harmed.
Don't need to edit any of that.
That's big.
But also, designing the life I want to live within my values and then living it. Like, there's a famous entrepreneur who said, well, if you're so smart, why are you not happy?
Right.
So, how do I also actually enjoy? Like Buddha, my favorite psychologist, the Buddha, he said, he taught suffering and the end of suffering. So if you can also enjoy the life despite the chaos of the world, I think while helping people, I think you've done it pretty good,
So wisdom. There's
embodied. If I'm enjoying the passing of time, I think that's pretty intelligent. If I design my life to enjoy this crazy thing we're experiencing right now, for this liminal space, my son is growing up so fast. And I have an only child. It's gone every day. This ends. His baby talk's just ending. He's 7, but he still has a little bit. It's just I'm gonna have to shed tears of sadness when that goes. And then it's just everything's going so fast. And if I can enjoy it, despite all the pain of the world, I think that's also intelligence on top of what I said.
So intelligence is understanding how to live a happy life.
Yes, within one's values. And I think a human being's innate values generally lean towards being kind and not harming.
Yes.
Well, there's that cognitive conflict, isn't there? Because there are things that make us happy that might not be ultimately ethical. And then there are things that you are drawn to do by duty that might not be making you intrinsically and in the moment happy.
That's the trick, is that's where the discipline, the candy, pile of sugar, yes, for a moment, but it makes us feel like garbage very quickly after. So it's that's wisdom, I think, And
what should we be doing in schools to nurture that type of intelligence?
Oh man, that's above my pay grade. That's your guys' job.
We want to know what you think too.
I think so all I can speak is my own personal experience. I was very smart. I was voracious reader. I was wildly curious. And I have I got diagnosed 2 years ago with ADHD inattentive type, which meant from first grade was good, but second grade on was I was in a lot of pain because I would sit there for most of my education, wah, wah, the Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 wah. That's what it sounded like, because I would read the information, I could understand it, I just sit there for an hour. Then I have to regurgitate the information that was spoken onto a piece of paper. And the few teachers I had that got me involved in a group, creating something, putting the concept that they were teaching into my own interaction, like something interacting, that's where I really learned. But I would say most of my education, I would sit there, I would read what we're supposed to learn, I'd figure it out, and then I would go off in my brain into fantasy because it was so painful to sit there just being talked to. And so where education worked for me, the 1 year I got to live in Italy, I had 9 people per class, but I also had teachers who were dynamic. It was this really fun school. And you couldn't hide. He's like, well, what do you think? No, what do you think? And I'd have to and then it was in a relationship, a dynamic relationship with my peers and the teacher. So
I think we need new definitions of intelligence.
Yeah. And we keep coming back to the idea of it not just being a static cognitive phenomenon, but something that is attitudinal, that is effective. And you're talking about a kind of active pedagogy there, which we agree.
Exactly.
It's
engaging, relational, connected.
Yeah. Yeah, because I help men recover from addiction, and a big mantra is the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I remember this to the day, still the best teacher I had. I had one in high school that helped save my life to get me to where I wanted to go. But the only teacher in elementary school that she would teach only through the body. So she wanted to teach us about the assembly lines. And why do we do this? She had one class build something that everybody had to build individually. The other half just had one little section, and we all built it together. And at the end, the people on the assembly line had 3 times as much of the same thing. But I was physically doing it. I never forgot that lesson. And if I had more of that, I would have I just would have known so much more because I would have experienced it rather than just been told information and regurgitated on paper. I would have felt it. If I don't feel it and I don't have it in my body, so in relation to another, it's hard for me to learn the way I'm wired.
So you're forming many. You formed many insights. You have a way of looking at interpreting the world and how you interact and help impart something to the men with whom you work. Do you enact that in now you're a psychotherapist, an actor turned psychotherapist, which is another interesting shift. I'm sure the answer has to be yes, but maybe a little bit more on how do you sort of bring that into your therapeutic sessions or workshops? Or
So I work with a lot of men who, and, not so much, but we've all been raised this way and who come to me for some form of suffering. But I don't say that because they're like, I'm not suffering, right? So a lot of what I do with, not all, but it's like a form of, I don't know if remember when Muhammad Ali beat George Foreman and he rope-a-doped him.
Right.
He wore him, and so I often rope-a-dope men, and I'm giving it away. They probably won't see this podcast, but basically, whatever they're suffering with, I'm like, okay, when does this thing happen? When does it get triggered? And we bring it up, and I write it down. I write down every note, and I'm just trying to give you the practical application of how I do it. Let's say every time I'm around this person, I lose my temper. I was like, okay, and I write it down. What do you say? What does it feel like? What are the thoughts? And then I say, okay, now close your eyes. And I'll repeat everything they said back to you. And this happens. And where do you feel that in your body? Where do you feel that in your body? And they're like, men often are like, I don't want to, my body. And then they'll be like, it's in my chest. And they'll say, great. And then we flesh it out. Is it red? Is it hot? Is it this? Is it that? And I was like, okay, does it make sense to you why this is happening? If it doesn't, we figure that out quick.
Yeah.
First to understand, why this is happening, make it sense from your life now, then we start talking to it. And then it gives answers. It responds. The anger says, well, I don't feel this way. Because Plato and I think it was Aristotle, they like the very fact that the mind is multiple is self-evident because we can disagree with ourselves. So they didn't even get into it too much because it's so obvious. But we're taught in this world that this is mono mind, but there's all these crazy opposing thoughts and feelings inside. And so what I do is help end the war. Like when you were talking about, you teach political depolarization. Mm-hmm. I teach understanding and compassion for all parts of self, especially the ones that don't think they deserve it. Like the kids who want love the most ask for it in the most unlovable ways. Yep. No bad kids, no bad parts. Like we try to help an individual meet all parts of themselves with understanding and compassion, because that's what works. Shaming oneself doesn't work. And shaming kids doesn't work, I don't think. It doesn't help them heal or learn.
Daniel, this has been an incredible conversation. We've really explored the inner recesses of being, of thinking, of feeling, what it means to be intelligent for you, and how you're putting that into practice. And intelligence in a broader scope than just being smart, but really being aware and striving for more connection. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. It was such a fun discussion.